on page 70 and so forth. They're talking about Solomon ibn Gabirol. He died about 1058. He was from Andalusia in Spain. He often used temple-related themes in his religious works. And his big religious work was the Kingdom's Crown, the Keter Malkut. This describes a mystical ascent through the spheres of heaven to the throne of God, and it parallels Dante's Paradiso, of course. This work is filled with allusions to temple motifs, the hidden chamber of power, the ineffable name, the veiling of God's power, and a hidden hall in the heavenly mansion. The creation of the universe is allegorically compared to the pitching of a huge tent tabernacle. This is what the Israelites did in the ancient desert, remember, of Sinai. Most of the poem describes the 10 spheres of the heavens. This would equate with the 10 spheres of the Kabbalah tree of life. That's my comment, not Hamblin's and Seeley's. It is through these 10 spheres, however, that the soul travels until it finally comes before the throne of God. So this was the mystic goal, is to attain this throne of God. This is huge in the books of Enoch, as I want to show you also. Now, my good and dear friend Andrei Orlov, in his new text, 2005, by Morris Seebeck, it's called The Enoch Metatron Tradition. Dr. Orlov is the world's foremost authority on the books of Enoch. He is sensational. This Enoch Metatron tradition is absolutely invaluable. If you can at all, you need to purchase this text. Here's what else he says about this throne symbolism. He's using Gershom Scholem's analysis of the Hechelot literatures. He says they are intimately connected with some of the earlier apocalypses by their distinctive common symbolism, namely the throne imagery. So when we read in the Hebrew account of Genesis, at the very creation, this V'ruach Elohim merach hefet al pnei tehom. This Spirit of God is hovering over the surface of the waters, with the understanding of Rashi that this is the throne of God hovering over the waters with the breath of God supporting this throne. This is the mystical goal of accomplishing. And the reason why is because, well, the earliest Jewish mysticism is throne mysticism. This is on pages 2 and 3. This text is like 400 pages. It's enormously fascinating. Dr. Orlov has done a tremendous work here. Its essence is not absorbing contemplation of God's true nature, but it is the appearance, it is the perception of the appearance of the throne. So when you're studying this Hebrew, you're thinking of the throne of God. It's described by Ezekiel. It's describing the mysteries of the celestial throne world. The throne world is to the Jewish mystic what the pleroma, that is the fullness, is the highest sphere of divinity with its potencies, aeons, archons, and dominions, is to the Hellenistic and early Christian mystics. He says that the Hechelot mysticism is a part of the visionary tradition of the heavenly ascent. And this is why it's so interesting at Jesus' baptism, and I've got some other materials I want to share with you on this also. The dove comes and dwells on Jesus. Now, Dale C. Allison Jr. in the Biblical Archaeology Review demonstrated some new Dead Sea Scroll fragments that have to do with this dove imagery hovering over the waters. And at Jesus' baptism, this evokes the beginning of the creation. Because what we're doing at baptism is we are renewing ourselves just as the creation is new in the Genesis record. Isn't that fascinating how all of this imagery begins to come together? In the Enoch materials, Enoch beholds that throne also. The books of Enoch, according to Dr. Orlov, actually describes Enoch's ascent to heaven and what he did there. It's phenomenal materials. Interesting also, in 2005, the text of the Studies in the Book of Abraham series, Astronomy, Papyrus, and Covenant, was published. And in this very excellent text, Daniel C. Peterson, John Gee, and Bill Hamblin, William J. Hamblin, in the first chapter, And I Saw the Stars, the Book of Abraham and Ancient Geocentric Astronomy. On page 3, well, on page 2 and then going on to page 3, in line with this idea of the throne at the beginning of the creation, the later Arabic astronomy tradition from Al-Tabari passes on reports that Abraham was given a vision of the creation, in which, among other things, the 7 heavens were opened to Abraham up to and including the throne, the Al-Arsh of God. Now, in their footnote, they're talking about later Muslim mystics who also saw the throne of God as being associated with the furthermost heaven. And the throne was at once the empyrean, the incorporeal dimension of reality lying behind. That is, there's no place, and encompassing the material cosmos. At the same time, this throne of God, as we remember the Hebrew in the Genesis account, the Merach Hephet, this throne of God is the noetic heart, the Kalb, Q-A-L-B, Kalb. This reminds us of Kolob. This is the heart, or the innermost reality of man. So now, not only do we have this grand concept of the throne of God at the very beginning, at the foundation of the creation, but it also is the innermost reality within us also. So it brings us in with the cosmos. This is so fascinating. In the language of the philosophers, both meanings referred to aspects of the divine intelligence, or the nous, is how the Greek word says, is nous. The prophetic sayings say that God's throne or house was the heart of the man of true faith, the Kalb al-Mu'min. The throne in Sadra is both Kalb and Empyrean, enclosing the pedestal or the footstool, and the footstool of God is the fixed spheres of the fixed stars. Isn't that fascinating? All of this background information on this throne of God in the first 3 chapters, in the first 3 verses of the book of Genesis. Once we begin to understand that this enormous cosmological as well as inner material is understood by the mystic tradition to be the background to our creation account in the Hebrew Bible, you begin to see why it's not enough just to read an English translation. It's not enough to just read commentators within your own tradition. If we break off into the other cultures, the Jewish, the Muslim, the medieval mystic, the alchemical, the Gnostic, the Kabbalistic, the Zoharic, all of these traditions are bringing together a greater depth and understanding, so that when you go back and you begin to read it again in the Hebrew, and you comprehend all of this material, you're beginning to see the majesty, the depth, the potential excitement for what the Scriptures are.